likewise which has been attributed to him and he has been described with from characteristics related to his character or related to his khalq, and his manner of being and how Allah Azza wa Jal created him. Knowledge of the seerah of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, from the beginnings of him becoming a messenger to the time that Allah Azza wa Jal took his soul. All of those affairs, ikhwan, that a person strives to increase himself in knowledge of that. And thirdly, وَمَعْرِفَةُ دِينِ الْإِسْلَامِ بِالْأَدِلَّةِ. That is that he has a knowledge of the deen of Islam with its proofs, with the evidences, with the adillah, with a knowledge of the evidences that are related to the wajib actions, to the mustahabbat and so on. And not just that we know generally we need to pray and we're supposed to establish the siyam and give the zakah and so on. That a person has a knowledge, strives to have knowledge of why we have to pray, mathalan. What is the evidence establishing why we have to pray? وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. What is the evidence and the adillah related to the awqat of salah, the ahadith related to some of the tafasil related to salah, that we strive, ikhwan, to study those kutub and those books that revolve around the adillah or collect the adillah that relate to those issues. And no doubt, ikhwan, from those books, we have those ahadith or those books that relate to the ayatul ahkam, the ayat or those verses that have, or that the scholars extrapolate rulings from. And likewise, we have those books concerning the ahadith al-ahkam, which the Shaykh is going to come onto and go on to discuss. And so that a person acquaints himself with the adillah is of major importance, ikhwan, and that he is one that spends time memorizing and trying his best to encompass that which he has from way of by text, by way of fahm and understanding. And indeed, ikhwan, that requires ikhlas and ijtihad from the talib, that he spends time memorizing. And that hifd we discussed yesterday, not in the dars, but we discussed with some of the brothers, that some of Ahlul Ilm, they mentioned some of the turuq and some of the paths to memorization. And from the best of the paths is that one chooses the right time to memorize, that he memorizes at a time when his brain is fresh. Mathalan, when he wakes up in the morning after Salatul Fajr, when mathalan he wakes up after a qaylula, mathalan, if he takes a qaylula, I mean, not something that we practice here, but if he happens to be in a country that he takes that qaylula or that midday rest, after the qaylula, it's a good time to memorize. Brain is fresh. And so he memorizes and chooses the best time when his brain is freshest. Likewise, that he chooses the right place to memorize in. That he doesn't memorize in a room that is filled with patterns and things going on, things happening, clocks that make noise and tick and whirl. Rather, that he finds a nice quiet place, a place that has the least amount of decoration and so on, that he's not distracted in his memorization, and that he takes his place in that room and memorizes. And he does so with tikrar. He repeats that which he intends to memorize until he believes, ikhwan, or till he is able to recite that without having to look at the book. And we were discussing yesterday, ikhwan, the affair of the shanaqita. And anyone who's familiar with the people from Mauritania, the people of Shanqit, will know that they are ajibeen when it comes, ikhwan, to hifz. They are absolutely amazing when it comes to memorization and when it comes to the ability to memorize. And I used to, when I was living in Medina, I used to live in Al-Harra Al-Gharbiya, which was the area that was known for the Shanaqita. So I had neighbors that were from that area. I would ask them, how is it? And what's the secret? He said, نحن أهل شنقيت, what we do is when we intend to memorize something, then we recite that thing, whatever it is, whether it's a page, 2 pages, we read it and we recite it and repeat it 100 times. Repeat it 100 times. He said, then fil asr, we repeat it again 30 times. He said, if you do that, inshallah, you never forget it. Wallah, you never forget it. You'll never forget it. It'll take a bit longer than normal, but you will not forget that which you've memorized in that type of manner. If you concentrate upon that piece of nas or that text, have that room that is not busy, and there's no disturbance, and you repeat, ikhwan, until you become, until you feel, even after you feel that you have it, continue to repeat it until you have that tight, and then move on to the next portion, whether it is of the Quran or whether it is of ahadith. And slowly but surely, ikhwan, if a person has consistency, that is, that on a daily basis, he has a portion of the day that he designates for that memorization, 20 minutes even if it is, if he has that consistency, then ikhwan, he will start to find that his ability to memorize becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, and slowly but surely, ikhwan, he will find ease as it comes to memorization, because his brain is acquainted with that, his brain is supple, and his brain, ikhwan, is being used on a regular basis. And so, ikhwan, I remember on occasion we asked an individual from the Tulab Ilm, and from those who likewise have knowledge of medicine concerning the brain and how one uses the brain, and some of the brothers were saying that as far as I'm concerned, my brain is dead. My brain, I'm not able to use my brain, it's no good for heaven. And he responded by saying that there is no such thing as a dead brain or as a good brain and a bad brain. Rather, you have an active brain and we have that brain that is inactive. So the more inactive one's brain is, then the less likely you are going to be able to memorize. And the more you put your brain into action, using or memorizing and acquainting your brain with memorization daily, slowly but surely, firstly, the amount of time you take to memorize will shorten, and secondly, the amount that you're able to take in one go will begin to increase, and you stretch those limits, stretch those boundaries, the more one concerns himself with that memorization. And so that he concerns himself with that, ikhwan, and that he has a designated portion of the day that everybody in that household knows, do not disturb. At 5 o'clock, do not disturb. Everyone knows this is my time, my memorization, and I concern myself with hifd at that time. And so, ikhwan, and if one gets himself into that type of routine, slowly but surely, ikhwan, try it. Bas, try it, and you'll see, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you begin to see, ikhwan, slowly but surely, subhanallah, in that short space of time, that the amount that a person takes on increases, and his ability to memorize becomes easier and easier and easier. Likewise, ikhwan, from those affairs is that a person chooses one nuskha of whatever it is he's memorizing. He chooses one print and he sticks to that one print. Because from the manners in which a person memorizes, when he memorizes, he uses, ikhwan, his sight likewise to memorize. And that the brain remembers the manner in which the words came and occurred upon that page. And any of you who are acquainted, ikhwan, with memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or making hifd of any of the kutub, and the books, or the mutun, I'm sure, ikhwan, you'll remember that when it comes to istihdar, you remember that such and such was in the middle of the page, or it's in the first quarter of the page, on the left hand side. You may not remember the page number, but you remember it was on that page, on the left hand wajh, in the first quarter of the page. And that is because the mind takes a picture, ikhwan, of the page that he memorizes, and alongside that repetition, he actually remembers the manner in which that page looks in one's mind. And so Ahlul Ilm, they mention the importance of having one nuskha or one print of whatever it is a person is going to memorize, and then that he concerns himself with memorizing in that manner. That he concerns himself with memorizing whether it is the book or whether it is the Quran upon one print. If he uses that one print, he will not become confused, and his memorization will be better and tighter. And we're going to go on to see, ikhwan, the discussion of memorizing the nusus and the text of the Kitab wa Sunnah, and likewise, even with those books, ikhwan, that are not necessarily books of ahadith, or that which is other than the Quran, even those books in those other sciences, one should try and concentrate upon those books that have in them the mention of nusus, the mention of text. Because oftentimes, if one memorizes just the kalam of an alim from the ulama, it is jayyid as far as, it is good as far as memorizing and likewise keeping the categorization of whatever knowledge that is in his head. But as it comes to using that, no doubt those books that have in them the mention of nusus are beneficial, the mention of text are beneficial, because he's able to use those texts outside of the context of that book. And so, ikhwan, that one concentrates on that. But no doubt, there are some sciences that one is not able to memorize, except that he memorizes just the speech of an alim from the ulama, or it may be that he memorizes poetry, and those books that are in poetry form are oftentimes easier to memorize and digest a particular type of knowledge when it comes in poetry form. مثلا علم المصطلح, علم النحو, and the science of hadith, you may find it difficult مثلا if you were to take up the book of Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, نخبة الفكر, and try and memorize the book piecemeal. Page